Welcome to part two of the Mithridates story. This is the Lectio Quarta. So we were looking at talking about Mithridates, right? This foreign king. So just wanted to go back and quickly review the geography. So here is Pontus, right? So you imagine this whole landmass here, what we call the Anatolian Peninsula. This is Turkey, ancient Persia, Asia Minor would be the other common term for this. So Mithridates is the king of this little kingdom here called Pontus. We learned in the story before that he already is holding Armenia Minor, which is this little area to the east of Pontus. He's kind of in a war of words right now with the Romans. Basically, they're threatening war against each other. He tells the Romans that because of these indiscretions, because of these injustices that Mithridates, has suffered, he's going to declare war on the Roman Senate, and the Senate responds by saying, you try that, and we're going to declare war on you. You're going to be the one who suffers. And so what is his response? Mithridates is going to expand even further, and he's going to start going into all of these kingdoms nearby. So Paphlagonia, we're going to see in today's story. Obviously, we're going to see Bithynia, which we talked about with Nicomedes. And so we ended with him sending the letter, and we got the Roman response, which was, you declare war on us, and we're going to declare war on you. So going back to the previous line, just grammatically, so we can take another look, right? It was responded to Mithridates by the Senate. The response from the Roman Senate to Mithridates was, if he were to do this, right? I don't know why it doesn't like that word. I'm going to allow that word. For some reason, Twitch didn't like it. What's up, Maddie? If he were to do this, right? So we have this conditional. If he were to do it, it's a subjunctive. So that's why it's this hypothetical situation. If he were to do it, meaning if he were to declare war, that he himself would be suffering war from the Romans. Okay. And that brings us to the start of part 2 here. So, oops, undo that. And scooch this. Yeah, that should be good. You guys can see that, I hope. So quada iratus, and we basically had the same expression in the previous. Quare is technically ablative. It's by this reason. It can also just be like because. And it's because in the sense of, and I'm going to mark it ablative just because that's technically what it is. Iratus, right? Angered by this. We have Kappodokiam, which is in the accusative case. Statim, which is an adverb. And then okupavit, right? This is about as simple as it gets, right? So we have this kind of, you could think of it participially because the iratus can be like angered by this. So angered by this being the exchange of, responses from he and the Senate. Angered by this, he, occupavit statim, he immediately occupied Cappadocia, seized it, took it. He immediately took Cappadocia. Took, seized, invaded, that idea, right? Occupo is like capio. It's another form of it. And again, just a friendly reminder, what we're talking about, he went south, right? So he took Cappadocia. So that's the first one that's mentioned here. So he's going to expand out to the south. So angered by this, he immediately took Cappadocia. And so we have our connector here at and ex ea, so an ablative prep phrase here. From there, the ea, the feminine thing that we're referring back to, is Cappadocia. So from Cappadocia, Ariobarzanin, another one of those Greek accusatives, Ariobarzanin regem in the accusative, et amicum populi Romani. So again, seeing that same phrase, friend of the Roman people, aka ally of the Roman people, sort of a client king of the Roman people, right? Might have been installed by the Romans. And then we have our verb here at the end, fugavit. What does fugare mean? It's different than fugere, right? Fugio, fugere is to run away. Fugare, not sure if anyone's in the chat. Fugare is to chase someone out. So he invaded Cappadocia, and he fugavit, and he chased out Exea from there. Ariobarzanes. We always translate names. He chased out from there. He chased Ariobarzanes, the regem et amicum populi Romani, king and friend of the Roman people. He chased Ariobarzanes out of there, meaning Cappadocia. So basically he chased Ariobarzanes out of his own kingdom. And standard Latin word order, right? We don't get our verb until the very end, so we have to kind of pick it up before we start doing our direct objects and our prep phrases and stuff. So just putting those two sentences together, because they are one long sentence. Angered by this, angered by the response that he received from the Roman Senate, he immediately took Cappadocia, Cappadocia, which is feminine, as most countries are, et Exea, and from there, from Cappadocia, he fugavit, he chased out Ariobarzanes, the regem et amicum populi Romani, the friend and the king and friend of the Roman people. So he's kind of going on a little bit of a conquering spree. I think he's just kind of trying to show off his dominance, as it were. Because what's going to happen soon? Mox etiam also Bithyniam invasit, my verb, third singular, et Paphlagoniam. Oops. So soon, invasit, the first principal part of that would be invado. Vadere is not a very common verb. It kind of means to go. Invado, right? Much more common in English. Invade, right, is to go into a place. Vado, even though not a very common verb in classical Latin, became the verb to go in Italian. So you see sometimes these minor verbs get picked up by the Romance languages. So soon he also invaded Bithynia and Paphlagonia. Pretty straightforward there. Interesting choice to put in Wasit where he did. He could have easily put that after Paphlagonium, but that just goes to show you that the word order is not so rigid, right? There is a little bit of, author's choice where they want to put some things. So he also invaded Bithynia and Paphlagonia. Then we get one of my personal favorites. We have pulsis ex ea regibus. Normally we expect something like this to be at the beginning of a sentence, but pulsis and regibus, both in the ablative case, with a little extra business, another extra ablative in the middle. So what we have here is a noun in the ablative. We have a participle in the ablative. We have a little extra business in the middle. This is your classic ablative absolute. So he invaded Bithynia and Paphlagonia, literal translation of an ablative absolute, with the kings having been driven out of there. Now that's a fine translation. You could leave it just like that, and I'm pretty sure the AP exam would give you a 5. But this is prose, right? And we want to really think about the best English way to translate that. So he invaded those places with the kings having been driven out. He invaded those places maybe after the kings had been driven out, when the kings had been driven out. I mean, I think the invasion is kind of happening at the same time, so you could really go with any of those translations. Any of them would be fine. You want to leave it as with the kings having been driven out of there? All good. Now, the word amicis is also in the ablative case. Amicis populi Romani. And then the two names here, Pilaimenes in the nominative, and Nicomede, are also in the ablative. So the kings, regibus, who happen to be amicis, populi Romani, who happen to be called Pilaimenes and Nicomedes. So they're all in the ablative because they're all the same persons, people. With the kings, Pilamenes and Comedies, Pilamenes, Nicomedes, friends of the Roman people, having been driven out. So anytime you have two words that are referring to the same person or the same thing, they of course need to be in the same case. So friends is in the ablative because kings is in the ablative, and the kings are the friends of the Roman people, and the kings' names are also in the ablative, Pilamene, Nicomede, because they are the kings, right? So cases always line up. If you're talking about somebody in the accusative, you have to use their name in the accusative. You have to use any word describing them in the accusative. All of these things agree. So soon, going back again, soon he invaded Bithynia and Paphlagonia, with their kings having been driven out from there, their kings being friends of the Roman people, their kings being Pilamenes and Nicomedes. Pilamenes is the king of Paphlagonia, Nicomedes of Bithynia. And that brings us to the last part here. Inde, from there, or hence, I think would be the English word. From there, Ephesum, which in the nominative would be Ephesus, contendit, third singular perfect, et, per, which takes the accusative case, per omnem Asiam litteras misit. So we have a compound sentence here, nice et in the middle to break it apart. So from there, contendo means to stretch, but if there's any kind of movement, this is another way of saying hurry to get to someplace. He rushed to Ephesus. And I'm not sure if we get Ephesus on this map. We do, right? So this map is crazy. Like the quality of this image is nuts. But here's Ephesus way down here, right? So he goes to Ephesus, right, which is right on the water. This is actually where, yeah, I was here. So he goes to Ephesus. So he travels across Turkey. He's invaded Paphlagonia, Bithynia, right, and he heads over to Ephesus, which is kind of a central hub. It's also a port city, which means it allows you to send messages out on boats or ships or travel or, you know, wherever. So it's a really important port. He rushed to Ephesus and misit litteras, and sent a letter. I know litteras is plural, but remember that word in the plural means a letter that you send somebody. Per omnem Asiam. He sent a letter throughout all of Asia Minor. He sent a letter all throughout the region. And then we get an ut. So what we talked about in class today is don't focus too much on the what kind of ut is it, what kind of clause is it, what kind of subjunctive is it. Just think about what we have. So he sent out a letter, and then we get an ut clause. My guess would be, if I'm thinking, if I'm reading, well, what's the letter say? Right? What's the letter gonna do? And then we have an ut. So that's what we're getting. And this ut kind of has this ubique inventi essent cives Romani, but really the ut clause here is ut uno die occiderentur. This ubicumque is kind of like its own clause, right? So he sent a letter stating that, requesting that, asking that. Ubicumque means wherever. So the letter states that ubicumque, which I think is technically a conjunction, wherever inventi essent, so we have third plural, we got a pluperfect subjunctive. Cives Romani, so we get our subject here at the end. The letter states that wherever Cives Romani, wherever Roman citizens literally had been found. But the idea here is wherever a Roman citizen is located, right? Wherever a Roman citizen should be, living, right? Because he's sending this letter all through Asia, telling people that wherever you find a Roman citizen, wherever a Roman citizen happens to be, uno die, in one day, within one day, you could say, occiderentur, third plural, this is your imperfect subjunctive. So the letter is stating that they should be killed in one day. So you could think of it as maybe the purpose of the letter, right? He sent a letter so that they be killed in one day. That you could argue, you could call it a purpose clause. You can call it whatever you want. To me, as long as you call it a nut clause, we're good to go. The they in this verb is Roman citizens. So that's why we get this first. Stating that wherever Roman citizens, it's pluperfect, so the idea here is wherever they have been found, wherever they had been found, they should be killed. That doesn't really sound good in English. So we might say something like, wherever Roman citizens are found, were found, wherever Roman citizens were found, they should be killed in one day. Right? That's the general idea. So he sends a letter out saying, I'm putting a bounty on the head of every Roman citizen that lives in Asia Minor. Right? And why is he doing that? Because he's declaring war on Rome. So he's basically saying no Roman citizen is safe in Asia Minor. If you're in my neck of the woods, I own this town, if I find a Roman citizen or you find a Roman citizen, anybody who's allied with me, with Pontus, if you find a Roman citizen, you kill him on the spot. Obviously, this is not going to go over well with the Romans. Okay? And that's the end of that section. So, again, geography, basic geography stuff. It helps just to kind of have a map open to see where these places are. But I'm not going to be quizzing you guys on, ancient Anatolian geography. So as long as you can basically reference what part of the world we're in, that's good enough for me. All right, guys. See you tomorrow.